In a world driven by innovation, there are some inventions so revolutionary, they never saw the light of day. Not because they didn't work, but because they worked too well. Because they disrupted, threatened, or even dared to liberate us from the chains of dependency. Some of these creators vanished from the public eye. Some were silenced. Others met untimely ends. Join us today on Facts Intrigue as we uncover the silenced by progress, inventors who changed everything until they were stopped. Throughout history, brilliance has often walked hand in hand with danger. For every invention that changed the world, there are others, equally extraordinary, that were buried before they ever had the chance. Whether by politics, profit, or fear, these innovations disappeared into the shadows. Let us begin with a name you've likely never heard, but whose work could have redefined how we power our lives. The radiant energy device. T. Henry Moray's vanishing power. Imagine a machine that could draw boundless energy from the empty spaces between atoms. A source so clean, so endless, it could power a city without burning a drop of fuel. That was the dream of Dr. T. Henry Moray, a brilliant electrical engineer from Salt Lake City. In the early 1900s, Moray claimed to have developed a device that harnessed radiant energy, oscillations from the vacuum of space itself. His invention, weighing just 60 pounds, reportedly generated 50,000 watts of electricity for several hours. Scientists and engineers witnessed it firsthand. The device worked, and yet, funding never came. Every door seemed to close. During the 1930s, Moray briefly collaborated with the Rural Electrification Administration, an agency reportedly infiltrated by communist operatives at the time. These individuals pressured Moray to share his secrets, not with the American people, but with the Soviet Union. One such man, known only as Z, gained Moray's trust over 2 months and eventually learned the secrets behind his specialized vacuum valve. To this day, some researchers believe that Z was a Soviet agent, and that Moray's work helped inspire what would later become Soviet psychotronic weapons. The inventor's breakthrough, capable of powering homes without wires, smoke, or fuel, was buried in the shadows of geopolitics. What remains is not the machine, but the mystery, and a chilling silence where progress once echoed. While some inventors sought to harness invisible energy, others found revolutionary potential in something far more grounded, grown from the earth itself. But even the most sustainable ideas can wilt under the weight of industry and control. The hemp car, Henry Ford's forgotten green machine. In 1941, automotive pioneer Henry Ford unveiled something truly ahead of its time. A car made almost entirely from hemp. Lightweight, durable, and eco-friendly, the hemp body car was a prototype that challenged everything about how we think of vehicles. The frame was built with a biocomposite of hemp fibers, soybeans, wheat straw, and resin, making it stronger than steel, yet much lighter. But the innovation didn't stop there. Ford's car was designed to run on hemp ethanol fuel, a clean-burning, renewable alternative that could be grown domestically and sustainably. The car's fuel efficiency? An impressive 40 miles per gallon, a remarkable achievement for the 1940s. But big oil wasn't about to let that ride. The petroleum industry, threatened by a fuel that could grow in your backyard, applied political pressure. Lobbyists and lawmakers imposed tight restrictions on hemp cultivation. And soon, the dream of a sustainable, plant-powered automobile was parked, indefinitely. Despite Ford's visionary work, the hemp car vanished into history, a symbol of what could have been in a world more open to progress over profit. While hemp could have changed how we fuel our world, one man dared to ask a deeper question. What if the key to sustainable energy was water itself? Not just as fuel, but as a living force of nature, misunderstood by science and misused by industry. Fuel and electricity weren't the only frontiers of innovation. Some visionaries looked deeper, into nature itself, seeking answers not in machines, but in the motion of water. One man claimed to have unlocked the secrets of the universe through a single drop. Viktor Schauberger, the man who understood water. Viktor Schauberger wasn't your average inventor. A humble Austrian forester, he believed nature held the key to solving humanity's greatest challenges, not through domination, but through imitation. His research into vortex water flow led to bold claims that water, when moved in spirals, could generate immense energy. He called it living water, a force that could purify, energize, and even power machines without pollution. Schauberger's theories were controversial, but compelling. He developed prototypes of implosion-based engines, machines that mimic the spiraling flow of water in natural streams and tornadoes. He claimed these designs could revolutionize energy production, agriculture, and even flight. But his work was met with ridicule by mainstream science, and interest from more secretive circles. During World War II, Schauberger was reportedly forced to work for the Nazis, contributing ideas to advanced propulsion systems. After the war, he was invited to the United States, where his knowledge was carefully extracted before he was sent home, broken, disillusioned, and forbidden to continue his work. Viktor Schauberger died in 1958, his notebooks and designs scattered. To this day, his supporters claim he discovered a form of clean, limitless energy, one the world wasn't ready to accept. He didn't just study water, he listened to it. Where Schauberger looked to the natural world for answers, another man worked in solitude, guided by heartbreak, obsession, and perhaps something science still cannot explain. His creation defied gravity, logic, and engineering, and he built it all alone. Coral Castle, the man who moved stone like the ancients. Tucked away in Homestead, Florida, stands a monument built from over 1,100 tons of oolite limestone, massive slabs carved and moved by a single man. No crane, no crew, no modern machinery. That man was Edward Leedskalnin, a Latvian immigrant with no formal education in engineering or architecture. And yet, he constructed what we now call Coral Castle, an elaborate complex featuring monolithic walls, perfectly balanced gates, star maps, sundials, and even a crescent moon, each piece meticulously sculpted and positioned. He worked only at night. Neighbors claimed to see stones floating in the air. Edward never allowed anyone to observe his process. And when asked how he accomplished it, he would reply simply, "I know the secrets of the pyramids." To this day, no one has definitively explained how a frail man, weighing just over 100 pounds, managed to quarry, shape, and transport such massive stones, many weighing more than a car. Engineers and scientists have studied Coral Castle, and still the methods remain unknown. Some speculate Leedskalnin discovered an understanding of magnetism, or anti-gravity, that allowed him to manipulate mass in ways we still don't grasp. Others dismiss it as clever physics and perseverance. But the castle still stands, and the mystery remains. In a world filled with machines and money, perhaps it was heartbreak that powered the greatest monument no one can explain. Some inventors built machines from metal and fire. Others, like Leedskalnin, harnessed mystery in stone. But then there are those who dared to look closer, at the tiniest creatures, believing nature itself already held the answers to flight, energy, and levitation. One such man claimed he had found it in the wings of insects. Viktor Grabenikov's anti-gravity platform. Powered by nature's design, Viktor Stepanovich Grabenikov was many things: a Russian entomologist, inventor, biologist, and a self-proclaimed explorer of the unknown. But it was his claims about anti-gravity that made him infamous. Grabenikov believed that the chitin shells of certain insects had unique microstructures, natural geometries that created an anti-gravity effect when manipulated properly. He claimed that by attaching dead insect wings to the base of a platform, he could achieve lift, silent, smooth levitation over the Russian countryside. He even documented his flights in his self-published work, My World, describing dizzying speeds, cloaking effects, and gravitational anomalies. The craft, he said, responded to thought and intention, guided by consciousness more than mechanics. To the scientific establishment, his claims were outrageous. But to others, Grabenikov's descriptions mirrored ancient stories of flying carpets and lost technologies. Skeptics dismiss his stories as fantasy. But here's the strange part. Viktor wasn't selling a product. He wasn't chasing fame. In fact, he spoke cautiously, warning others about the dangers of meddling with forces we don't fully understand. And then he vanished from the public eye. No footage, no working prototype, just written testimony and lingering wonder. Was it all a hoax, or another forbidden breakthrough, quietly buried beneath the wings of nature itself? By now, you might be wondering, if all these technologies were silenced, buried, or dismissed as fantasy, what else might be hidden? What about medicine? What about healing? What if, Among the lost inventions and suppressed science, there was something even more consequential, something that could save millions of lives, but never saw the light of day. Later in this video, we'll explore one of the most controversial and chilling possibilities of all. Could a cure for cancer have already been found and quietly made to disappear? Stay with us, because that final story will make you question everything. And if you haven't yet, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves a good mystery, and subscribe to Facts Intrigue for more deep dives into the stories they don't want you to know. Now, back to the world of forbidden weather control. If nature holds the key to energy and levitation, could it also be bent to command the skies themselves? One man believed so, and for a time it seemed he could call rain from the heavens with a machine no one truly understood. The Cloudbuster, Wilhelm Reich's war with the sky. Wilhelm Reich was a man of ideas, radical, misunderstood, and ultimately hunted for what he believed. A student of Freud, Reich later ventured into uncharted territory, developing a theory around what he called orgone energy, a life force he believed permeated all things. But Reich's most ambitious invention was something out of myth, a machine to control the weather. He called it the Cloudbuster. Constructed from metal tubes connected to water sources, the device was designed to manipulate orgone energy in the atmosphere, drawing it down from the sky to induce rain. Reich claimed success in multiple field tests, allegedly ending droughts and even steering storms. But his work drew attention, the kind he didn't want. To mainstream science, the Cloudbuster was pseudoscience at best. But the US government saw something different. They took his machines, burned his books, and in 1956, they imprisoned him. 1 year later, Wilhelm Reich died in custody. Officially, the Cloudbuster never worked. Unofficially, it remains one of the strangest stories of weather manipulation in history. A story that ends not with debunking, but with silence. And once again, silence is where progress goes to die. Some inventions vanish in obscurity. Others are erased in broad daylight, right in front of us. Imagine a vehicle so efficient, so quiet, so clean, that it threatened an entire industry. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. The GM EV1, the electric car they didn't want you to have. In the late 1990s, the American automotive giant General Motors unveiled what could have been a revolution on wheels, the EV1, the first mass-produced, fully electric vehicle made by a major automaker. Sleek, silent, and emission-free, the EV1 could travel up to 140 miles on a single charge, a remarkable feat for its time. Drivers who leased the car in California and Arizona praised it for its performance, reliability, and futuristic feel. But then, something strange happened. Despite overwhelmingly positive feedback, GM abruptly ended the program. They didn't just stop making the cars, they recalled them. Almost every EV1 was collected, destroyed, and shredded into scrap metal. Why? Officially, GM claimed there was no market for electric vehicles, but many insiders, and those who drove the EV1, believed the real reasons were far more troubling. At the time, oil companies, car part suppliers, and even dealerships stood to lose billions. Electric cars required less maintenance, no oil changes, no fuel, fewer breakdowns. In other words, fewer profits. There were rumors of pressure behind the scenes, lobbying from fossil fuel interests and political maneuvering that made it easier for GM to quietly bury its own innovation. A few EV1s survived in museums, rendered non-functional. The rest, crushed. Progress silenced, not by failure, but by success. Not all silenced inventions were machines. Some were answers to deadly questions, solutions that could have saved lives, but never reached the people who needed them. And in this case, the danger wasn't in a virus, but in a vice. Project XA, the cancer-free cigarette that disappeared. For decades, the dangers of cigarette smoking were an open secret, whispered in labs, ignored in boardrooms. But behind the smoke and mirrors, one man may have uncovered a way to save lives without banning the habit. That man was Dr. James D. Mould, a dedicated scientist who dared to think differently. With the support of the Liggett Group, one of America's oldest tobacco companies, Mould spent 25 years developing a cigarette that could drastically reduce or even eliminate its cancer-causing effects. His invention was called Project XA, later known as the Palladium cigarette. It used a special filter treatment involving palladium and magnesium nitrate designed to neutralize the carcinogenic components in cigarette smoke. The results in laboratory testing were promising, shocking even. Test animals exposed to smoke from Project XA showed no signs of cancer. It should have been a breakthrough, a triumph, a way to save countless lives. But instead, it was buried. Tobacco company lawyers warned that releasing a safer cigarette could open a floodgate of lawsuits from the families of smokers who died using the less safe versions. The legal and financial risk was deemed too great. The palladium cigarette never made it to market. Project XA was shelved. And Dr. Mold's revolutionary discovery disappeared into the archives of corporate silence. Once again, a cure, not for disease but for consequence, was smothered in fear and profit. We've seen powerful machines silenced for threatening empires. But sometimes the mystery isn't just in the invention, it's in the inventor. One man claimed he could tap into invisible forces, energies no one else could see and no one else could control. The Hendershot generator, free energy from the air? Lester Hendershot wasn't a physicist or a wealthy industrialist. He was a self-taught inventor with a vision, and what he claimed was a working free energy device, one that didn't burn fuel, didn't require wires, and didn't follow the known laws of physics. He called it the Hendershot generator, and for more than 30 years, he worked to perfect it. Hendershot believed he had tapped into the Earth's magnetic field, building a generator that could draw continuous power from this invisible force. The device was demonstrated publicly many times between 1928 and 1960, and several credible witnesses, including famed aviator Charles Lindbergh, confirmed that it worked. There were newspaper clippings, live demonstrations, eyewitness accounts. The energy seemed real and free. But here's the twist. Only Hendershot could make it work. Others failed to replicate it. And when asked to explain how it functioned, he couldn't offer a fully scientific breakdown. He just knew how to build it. Still, interest in the device grew until Hendershot began facing political pressure and mysterious setbacks. He attempted to move his operation to Mexico, hoping for more freedom, but the momentum faded. His invention fell into obscurity, and so did he. Today, some call it a hoax, others a lost breakthrough. But whether Hendershot truly unlocked free energy, or simply glimpsed a force we don't yet understand, remains one of the great unsolved puzzles in the story of suppressed science. When we speak of genius, few names carry the same weight as Tesla. His ideas lit the modern world, but the one dream he held closest, the one that could have changed everything, was never allowed to come true. And when it was silenced, so was he. Nikola Tesla's wireless energy, the tower, they tore down. By the dawn of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla was a household name, a pioneer in electrical engineering, whose victory over Thomas Edison in the War of Currents had made alternating current the standard across the globe. But for Tesla, electricity wasn't just about lighting bulbs. It was about liberation. In 1901, Tesla began work on his most ambitious creation, the Wardenclyffe Tower, built on Long Island, New York. It wasn't just a communications hub, it was the first step in a global wireless energy system, a tower designed to transmit electricity across vast distances, without wires, without pollution, and without cost to the user. Tesla envisioned a world where entire cities could be powered wirelessly, using the Earth itself as a conductor. He even believed it could send images, sound, and data a century before the internet. But when his primary investor, J.P. Morgan, learned that Tesla's vision involved giving energy away for free, he pulled the plug. Funding stopped. The tower was never completed. And in 1917, it was demolished, its metal sold for scrap. Tesla died penniless in a hotel room, his notes confiscated, his name, for a time, forgotten. Today, we remember him as a visionary, but the true potential of his wireless energy system remains untested. Whether it could have powered the world, or at least freed it from dependence, remains a question buried in time. One thing is certain, they didn't just abandon his work, they made sure no one else could build it again. Imagine a car that runs on nothing but water, no oil, no emissions, just a glass of tap water and a dream. One man claimed to have built such a machine. But what happened next? That depends on who you ask. Stan Meyer's water-powered car, engine of the future, or threat to big oil? In the 1990s, American inventor Stanley Meyer unveiled something extraordinary: a water-powered car. He claimed to have developed a fuel cell that could split water into hydrogen and oxygen efficiently enough to power a standard internal combustion engine. He called it the water fuel cell, and according to Meyer, his modified dune buggy could drive across the United States on just 22 gallons of water. The implications were staggering. Unlimited fuel from the most abundant substance on Earth. No emissions, no reliance on foreign oil, no gas stations needed. Meyer began demonstrating his invention to investors, engineers, and media outlets. He was granted patents. Interest surged, and then things took a dark turn. In 1996, a court ruled that his invention was fraudulent after an investor lawsuit. Experts claimed his device violated the laws of physics. Meyer stood by his work, calling the ruling a smear campaign. Then in 1998, Stanley Meyer died suddenly while dining with two Belgian investors. His brother reported that Meyer ran out of the restaurant clutching his throat, saying, "They poisoned me." The official cause of death? A brain aneurysm. But suspicions linger to this day. One of the investors, Philippe van der Merwe, claimed to be a friend of Meyer's and denied any foul play. Yet many believe Stan Meyer's invention posed too great a threat to be allowed and was silenced before it could change the world. His car was never mass-produced, his patents lapsed. And the plans for the water fuel cell? Gone. Was it science fiction or science suppressed? Either way, the engine stopped and the silence began. We often think of technology as circuits and steel. But what if a breakthrough came not from machinery, but from magnification, from a lens that could see the invisible, and a frequency that could destroy disease? One man believed he had found the key to curing cancer itself, and then he was erased. Royal Raymond Rife, the microscope that saw too much. In the early 20th century, Royal Raymond Rife built a microscope unlike anything the world had ever seen. While conventional microscopes maxed out at around 2500x magnification, Rife's universal microscope reportedly achieved 60,000x magnification, allowing him to observe living viruses and bacteria in real time. But Rife didn't stop at observation. He went further, claiming that each microorganism had a unique resonant frequency, much like a musical note. And by broadcasting that precise frequency back at the organism, he could shatter it, without harming surrounding tissue. He called it his beam ray device, and he claimed it could destroy cancer cells using only targeted radio waves. In lab tests and early trials, some physicians reported shocking results: tumors shrinking, infections clearing, patients recovering. Rife's lab was visited by doctors and scientists, and even received mention in publications like the Smithsonian Institution Annual Report. But then, the backlash began. The American Medical Association, the American Cancer Society, and other mainstream institutions rejected his claims. His work was labeled pseudoscience. Laboratories were raided, equipment was confiscated, his allies were silenced, discredited, or prosecuted. And Rife himself, driven into isolation and obscurity. No clinical trials, no peer-reviewed follow-up, just silence. Today, Rife's name lives on in alternative health circles, but his original machines are lost. Whether he truly found a cure, or simply wandered too far into fringe territory, remains hotly debated. But in a world where the cure may threaten the system, even the slightest possibility becomes a danger too great to tolerate. Some dreamers reached for the skies with wings, others with fuel. But one man believed that flight, true flight, could be achieved by bending gravity itself. And the closer he got to success, the more his name seemed to drift into the classified files of history. Thomas Townsend Brown, the man who chased anti-gravity. Thomas Townsend Brown was not your average inventor. He didn't just study electricity, he believed it could alter gravity itself. In the 1920s, Brown discovered a strange phenomenon while experimenting with high-voltage capacitors. He noticed that when an electrical charge was applied, the device would produce a small but measurable thrust in one direction. He called this effect electrogravitics, believing it to be the key to unlocking anti-gravity propulsion. The principle was simple, at least in theory. Apply enough electrical force to specific materials, and you could manipulate gravitational fields. Not just fight gravity, but control it. For decades, Brown pursued this idea, filing patents and designing experimental craft. His lifters, lightweight frames powered by high voltage, hovered and moved without traditional engines. At first, they were dismissed as curiosities, but as the Cold War escalated, whispers of interest from the military and aerospace contractors began to emerge. That's when things got quiet. Brown's work was increasingly tied to classified research, and many believe that his concepts were absorbed into black-budget projects, never to be publicly acknowledged. Meanwhile, amateur scientists around the world tried, and still try, to replicate his work, inspired by what became known as the Biefeld-Brown effect. Was Townsend Brown a visionary silenced by secrecy, or a hopeful experimenter who stumbled onto an inconvenient truth? To this day, electrogravitics remains an enigma. But one thing is clear. If gravity can be manipulated, the sky is no longer the limit. It's just the beginning. We've touched the sky. Now we return to the ground, to the struggle for healing, and the resistance faced by those who dared to offer an alternative path. Throughout history, those who claim to heal outside the system have faced the same fate: ridicule, rejection, and sometimes ruin. One such man offered a natural cure for cancer and paid the price for his defiance. Harry Hoxsey, the persecuted cancer treatment pioneer. In the 1920s, a former coal miner named Harry Hoxsey became the face of one of the most controversial cancer treatments in American history. He had no medical degree, no institutional backing, but what he did have was a family formula and a growing number of patients who swore by it. The Hoxsey method was an herbal treatment passed down from his grandfather, said to have cured cancer in a beloved horse. Over time, Hoxsey adapted it into two forms: a topical paste for external tumors and an herbal tonic for internal use, combined with dietary changes and supplements. He opened clinics across the country, claiming to heal thousands. By the 1950s, the Hoxsey Cancer Clinic in Dallas, Texas, was one of the largest privately owned cancer centers in the world. But Hoxsey also had powerful enemies, most notably the American Medical Association and the Food and Drug Administration. They branded his treatments as quackery. His clinics were raided, his medicines were seized. And in 1960, after decades of legal battles and relentless pressure, the US government banned the Hoxsey method. Hoxsey was forced to shut down his American operations, but the treatment found refuge just across the border in Tijuana, Mexico, where it continues today under a new name at the Biomedical Center. Supporters claim the method works. Critics call it dangerous pseudoscience. But the bigger question remains: if something offers hope, however slim, why is it treated as a threat? Is it because it doesn't work, or because it doesn't generate profit? Let us know in the comments below what you think. Do you think Hoxsey was silenced because he was onto something? We would like to know your thoughts. Not every forbidden technology was silenced by mystery or science. Sometimes the conspiracy is simple: make something worse to sell more of it. One forgotten alliance between global companies did just that, by shortening the very light in your home. The Phoebus Cartel, dimming innovation for profit. In the 1920s, light bulbs were getting better, too good in fact. Early incandescent bulbs could last 2,500 hours or more, with some burning brightly for decades. But to the companies making them, that was a problem. A bulb that lasts a lifetime doesn't need to be replaced. Enter the Phoebus Cartel, a secretive alliance formed in 1925 between the world's largest light bulb manufacturers, General Electric, Osram, Philips, and others. Their goal? To intentionally reduce the lifespan of light bulbs to just 1,000 hours. They called it standardization. But make no mistake, it was planned obsolescence, one of the earliest and most coordinated efforts to manipulate product durability for maximum profit. They established rules, imposed fines on companies that made longer-lasting bulbs, and rewrote the future of lighting, not in the name of progress, but in the name of sales. By the 1940s, the cartel had quietly dissolved, partly due to the outbreak of World War II and rising legal scrutiny. In 1949, the US government ruled that General Electric had violated the Sherman Antitrust Act, citing its role in the cartel and its monopoly over bulb longevity. But by then, the damage was done. The 1,000-hour standard had become the global norm, and remains so to this day. Ironically, a single light bulb known as the Centennial Light has been burning in a California firehouse for over 120 years. A reminder of what once was and what was taken from us. The Phoebus cartel didn't just dim the lights, they darkened the path to innovation itself. Sometimes the most powerful ideas don't come from fringe inventors, but from the very heart of science. One man, decorated, respected, and brilliant, put everything on the line to champion a simple substance, and in doing so, he found himself cast out by the very world he helped build. Linus Pauling, the vitamin C controversy. Linus Pauling wasn't just any scientist, he was one of the few people in history to win 2 unshared Nobel Prizes. A chemist, biochemist, peace activist, and pioneer of molecular biology, Pauling was hailed as one of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. But in his later years, he became known for something else entirely: his unwavering belief in the healing power of vitamin C. Pauling advocated for high-dose vitamin C therapy, especially in the prevention and treatment of cancer, heart disease, and the common cold. He called it orthomolecular medicine, the idea that optimal health could be achieved by balancing the right molecules in the body, particularly through megadoses of nutrients. To mainstream medicine, this was a bridge too far. While some early studies supported Pauling's claims, larger clinical trials were either inconclusive or outright refuted the benefits. Medical institutions dismissed his theories. Journals refused to publish his work. He was accused of promoting pseudoscience. Yet Pauling never wavered. Until his death in 1994, he remained convinced that vitamin C, when used correctly, could save lives. Today, debate still rages. Newer research shows promise in specific contexts, especially in intravenous vitamin C as a complement to traditional cancer therapies. But official endorsement remains elusive. Why? Some say the evidence just isn't there. Others point to a more cynical reason. You can't patent a vitamin, and if healing comes cheap, someone's profit margin takes a hit. Linus Pauling once revolutionized science, then he challenged the system, and for that, they turned their backs on him. Progress, once again, silenced not by ignorance, but by resistance. Every so often, an idea emerges that could change the world overnight. But when that idea challenges the foundations of modern science and threatens billion-dollar industries, it doesn't get applause, it gets erased. And sometimes, so does the messenger. Cold fusion and the mysterious death of Eugene Malov. In 1989, 2 electrochemists, Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann, announced something extraordinary. They had achieved cold fusion in a laboratory setting, a nuclear reaction at room temperature, producing more energy than it consumed. If true, it would have revolutionized the world. Clean, limitless energy, without radiation, without waste, without war. But the scientific establishment didn't embrace it. Instead, it attacked. Cold fusion was branded a mistake. Replication attempts failed, or were claimed to have failed. Funding dried up, researchers were ridiculed, and cold fusion was swept under the rug. But not everyone gave up. Enter Dr. Eugene Malov, an MIT-educated scientist, engineer, and publisher. Malov believed the cold fusion findings were not only real, but deliberately suppressed. In his book, Fire from Ice, he accused major institutions, including his own alma mater, of covering up successful replications to protect their investments in hot fusion research. He founded Infinite Energy magazine to give a voice to other researchers in the field. He championed fringe science, not out of rebellion, but because he believed it deserved a fair chance. Then in 2004, Malov was found beaten to death outside a rental home he was cleaning out. The crime shocked his supporters. 3 people were eventually arrested, with 1 convicted of first-degree murder. The official narrative? A violent dispute over personal property. But to those in the cold fusion community, it raised questions, unsettling ones. Why did a peaceful scientist, long ostracized by the mainstream, suddenly wind up dead, just as cold fusion was gaining renewed interest? Today, research into low-energy nuclear reactions continues quietly, under different names, in private labs around the world. And Malov is remembered not just as a champion of cold fusion, but as a man who stood up to the silence. And for that, the silence tried to swallow him whole. Some ideas are so unconventional, so out of the box, that they sound impossible, until someone builds them. One inventor claimed he could run an engine on a mixture of fuel, water, and air, with almost no emissions. His invention worked. and then the walls closed in. Paul Pantone, the Geet engine they didn't want on the road. Paul Pantone was an inventor with a vision and a prototype. He called it the Geet fuel processor, a device that could allegedly allow engines to run on a mix of gasoline, water, waste oil, and even soda, all while drastically reducing emissions. The technology was based on a bizarre but intriguing concept: preheating fuel vapor through a plasma reactor system that created a highly efficient burn. Pantone's Geet engine appeared to run cleaner, longer, and cheaper than conventional systems. In demonstrations, he showed engines running on less fuel, and in some cases, with water as a major component of the mix. It wasn't a free energy machine, but it was a massive leap in fuel efficiency and environmental impact. That should have made him a hero. Instead, it made him a target. Pantone began facing mounting legal troubles, regulatory pushback, and bizarre institutional roadblocks. He was eventually institutionalized in a psychiatric facility in Utah after a series of legal proceedings that many found deeply suspicious. Some called it justified, others a modern-day silencing. Years later, Pantone was released and continued promoting his work, though by then, the Geet system had fallen into the fringes of alternative science. Still, hundreds of tinkerers around the world claim to have built functioning Geet engines. If true, the implications are staggering. Cleaner fuel, cheaper energy, and less pollution, buried beneath a storm of legal confusion and media silence. Once again, the question echoes: was it madness or a method the world wasn't ready for? Some names are etched into history, taught in schools, stamped onto engines across the globe. But even those names can carry secrets, because sometimes, even the most successful inventions come at a price. Rudolf Diesel, the engine that threatened an industry. Rudolf Diesel is remembered today as the brilliant mind behind the diesel engine, a power plant known for its durability, efficiency, and ability to run on a wide range of fuels. But what many don't know is that his original vision was far more revolutionary than the industry ever let on. In 1893, Diesel's first working model roared to life in Augsburg, Germany. His design promised something game-changing: a high-efficiency internal combustion engine that could run not only on petroleum but on vegetable oils, like peanut oil and hemp oil. His hope? That farmers could grow their own fuel, creating a decentralized energy system independent of oil monopolies. It was brilliant. It was disruptive. And then, diesel vanished. In 1913, just before the outbreak of World War I, and shortly after meeting with potential financiers in England, Rudolf Diesel mysteriously disappeared from a steamship crossing the English Channel. His body was discovered 10 days later, floating in the water. The official ruling? Suicide. But the circumstances have long been questioned. Diesel was known to be under immense pressure. He was deeply in debt, but also on the cusp of revolutionizing global fuel economics. Had he succeeded, petroleum might never have become the dominant force it is today. Some theorize that powerful interests saw the threat his engine posed. Others believe he was silenced before he could shift the balance of global energy forever. What we do know is this: the diesel engine lived on, but not in the way its creator intended. It was refined, co-opted, and tied forever to fossil fuels, and the man who dreamed of a cleaner, farmer-fueled future lost to the sea, and perhaps to history. In our final segment, here is a question that haunts us. Was the cure for cancer silenced too? Cancer, a word that touches nearly every life. A trillion-dollar industry built on the search for treatment, decades of research, billions in funding. And yet, after all this time, we still hear the same refrain: there is no cure. But after what we've seen, can we still accept that at face value? What if someone did find a cure? What if it was natural, simple, even inexpensive? And what if, just like the inventions we've seen throughout this video, it was buried? There have been whispers for decades about researchers who stumbled onto unexpected breakthroughs, about natural remedies that showed promise in small trials, about substances as basic as baking soda said to raise the body's pH and create an environment where cancer cells can't thrive, about diets, herbs, frequencies, vitamin therapies, ancient knowledge long dismissed by modern medicine. We are not doctors. We do not offer medical advice. But we do ask questions. Like, if a simple, effective cure was found, would the world ever hear about it? How would the cancer treatment industry survive a one-time cure? What happens to billion-dollar chemo centers, pharmaceutical giants, and fundraising machines if the problem is suddenly solved? The truth? We don't know. But what we do know, based on the stories we've told today, is that history has a pattern. When a breakthrough threatens power, it doesn't get promoted, it gets silenced. So we ask you now, could the cure for cancer already exist? Has someone already paid the price for discovering it? And if so, how many lives were lost, not to disease, but to silence? In a world where innovation is often crushed by profit, this may be the most dangerous question of all. What do you believe? Have we already found the cure for cancer? Only to bury it beneath the weight of power and greed? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts, your theories, your voice. If you found this video compelling, give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to Facts Intrigue for more stories that challenge what we think we know. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Because one thing is clear, the truth doesn't stay buried forever.